Well, hey everybody! Welcome to another edition of the Weekly Pulse. It's me here, Dan at Forbidden Planet. I went through a couple number ones. Some of them were not my favorites, so I'm not going to talk about them. But here are a few that I did like, and I'll talk about what I liked about them. We'll start with New Disc number 1. So this is the last of the Vertigo issues, these number 1s that they've been coming out with. I like the concept of New Deadwardians. It's basically it's sort of like a hierarchy of beings, right? At the top, you got the vampires. In the middle, you got human beings, and then at the bottom, you've got zombies. And it opens up really strong. It's like there's a vampire. He's having night, even though he's not really supposed to sleep at night because he's a vampire. And he wakes up and he finds out that his maid, one of his old maids, got eaten by a zombie who snuck in, and it's pretty gross. And then it kind of takes us on this mystery of how does the world work? How did the zombie get in? What's the deal with the zombies? And you also find out a little bit about this protagonist, this lead guy, and what he does. He's a homicide detective, and at the end of the issue, he finds out something strange has happened. What? I'm not going to tell you. You have to pick it up and tell me. I thought this was pretty good. I'll try number 2, but it's got to step up the game a little bit. First couple pages interesting, art pretty good. By the end of it, I was just, I wouldn't say bored, but not like, man, which is what I think you need to do with a number 1. But you tell me what you thought. Meanwhile, BPRD, the Pickens County Horror, number 1, written by our friend Scott Alley, along with the one and only Mike Mignola. This is basically a story about vampires, but done in a very BPRD, Dark Horse kind of way, which is to say that it's dank and dark and dirty and disgusting and awesome and great and delightful, just to make sure that we get another D word in there. BPRD shows up, they're investigating it. What's going on? They don't really get too far into it, just that there's a weird green mist and it makes a horrible sound, this horrible moaning. And there's a professor there that's sort of investigating this origin of vampires and what they're doing in this particular area, and it's cool. It's cool. It's that dark, disturbing thing that Dark Horse does, horror stuff, I believe, that Scott Alley particularly does very well. So definitely worth a pick up that one. Tell me what you think if you read it. Hey, so here's a story. When I started working at Forbidden Planet, there was an event called Flashpoint, which you may remember, that led to that New 52, and I was like, I've never read a whole thing. I'm going to read everything, all the side issues, and when I got to the end of Flashpoint, I thought, well, I'll never do that again. But now there's this big story that Marvel's doing, which you may have heard about, which is Avengers versus X-Men. And I thought, well, I'll at least read the main arc. So this week we've got the number 0 that came out, and there's 2 stories. There's a Scarlet Witch story in here, and then there's a Hope Summers story. And actually, these are both really good. The Scarlet Witch, a very emotional tale. There's some nice action at the front, which I like. And then some other ladies show up, some other lady superheroes. They fight with her, and they go back, and they have a nice little chat, and something really mean happens to her, and she gets sad and goes away. She kind of went crazy and hurt some people, including her dude. Anyway, that's solid, and then the Hope story is really great because it's setting up the fact that some stuff's probably going to happen with her. You know that thing, that Phoenix Force, you remember that? Remember Phoenix Force? Because that's kind of what that's all about. So this 0 was good. And even though it's not coming out until next week, I thought we'd mention this because we got it in the store. We're hiding it. Shh, I won't tell you where. The actual first issue. And, man, I wish I could tell you that this was as good as the number 0, but boy, is it just... It's a lot of flash and bang and not really any substance. But you know, if you've got like John Romita doing some art, that's okay. That's alright, that's all you need. It's just a lot of fighting and such, and Phoenix Force again, and the Avengers being like, we gotta stop that Phoenix Force, and them going like, hey X-Men, we gotta stop that Phoenix Force, and they're like, nah, I don't think so, because that Phoenix Force might work out for us this time. Might be helpful. So it's just, it's a setup for a fight with the Avengers versus the X-Men. Basically, I would say buy this if you really like John Romita art, which why wouldn't you? And then let me know if you think that there is more going on here, because I'm not a big Marvel guy, but it's interesting. It's going to go for like 12 issues. I'm going to give it a shot. Are you going to read it? You let me know. Meanwhile, there weren't a lot of other noteworthy, like, coming out this week #1s, and the good news about that is, it means I could talk about whatever I want. So I'm going to talk about the comics that the people who work in the store make. This one is by Josh Weisbrau. It's called Gup, and it's about this little kung fu guy, and he just talks through honks. He's a honker. It's just, man, I wish I could explain how the humor, like, it's funny. This is like a funny, weird, like, if you come in the store, talk to Josh Weisbrau if he'll allow you for 5 minutes, and you'll know exactly what you're going to get in this book. But it's such a strange little character piece, in a way that I feel like only he could ever create. Like, you'll never read another book like this unless Josh Weisbrau makes more books, which I'm sure that he will. But, like, it's just, I can't, just, you have to read this book to believe it. Like, this is like a must-buy. Just, like, if you're tired of reading the same old schlock week after week, you will never read a book like Gup. There are no other authors and artists like Josh Weisbrau in the world, which makes it a rarity, and it makes it interesting in the comics community. So read this book, and, like, buy it and support an independent dude, especially if you like Forbidden Planet, 'cause he works here. And the other one that I was going to talk about, and there's 3 issues of it, is a book called Big Title. Now, here's the reason why this is a big deal. I don't like wrestling. I'm not a wrestling guy, me. But I really like this book, Big Title, which is all about this guy Downs, there we go. And his sort of rise to fame in the wrestling community. It's his story of how he starts off small and grows. And what's interesting is that there's actually a story that was coming out that I was reading called Heart by Blair Butler that did the same thing with UFC. But because this is wrestling, this gets to have something that I feel like Heart couldn't have, which is humor. Like, there's funniness to this. Like, it's got a good sense of humor to it. It's, like, way over the top in a way that wrestling is. Like, it really captures the flavor of wrestling, but in a way that even I was able to enjoy. And what's really fun for me is being able to watch, like, here's the first issue, and then the 3rd issue, Alec Llewellyn put out pretty recent, and you can actually see how his art has evolved over time, and how he's improved his style. And it's just, man, like, it's just funny and interesting, and the characters are easily identifiable. And if you like wrestling, man, like, I'm not a wrestling guy, and I like this. If you like wrestling, you probably will absolutely love it. And it's another chance to sort of try out something that isn't, like, you know, a superhero book, or something that's, like, it's off the beaten path, I believe is what I'm trying to say. So, Big Title. There's 3. Here's 1, 2, 3. By Alec Llewellyn. They're great. They're really legit great. This and Gup. Like, if I was going to say buy anything this week, don't worry about Avengers vs. X-Men. Don't worry about, I mean, like, BPRD, it's good, and Deadwardians is interesting, but, like, try something new, is what I would say. And on the trade front, Rachel Rising came out. Man, I'm going on forever. Terry Moore, I love him. He did Strangers in Paradise. He did a book called Echo, and now he's, this is like a horror week, a lot of horror stuff. This is a nice horror book about this girl who comes back from the dead, and she doesn't know exactly how she died, but everybody's like, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with your eyes? She's just really creepy looking, and neither does the main character. And it's just, I like a good black and white book. If you like Terry Moore's art and his storytelling, then this is sort of like a no-brainer. This is the first trade. And I know it's hard to get these in the single issues, so a trade is usually a good call. And then there's a Frazetta book that came out, and instantaneously I want to buy it because it looks old. Is that silly? Like that a book looks old, so I'm like, oh, I'm interested in this. But inside, I'm just gonna flip right through. Is like all his cool friends at Frazetta stuff, and like there's just like looks like some anecdotes in there, some really great art. Well, I mean, all of his art is pretty great, but if you like Frazetta, man, this is a book that came in, and I think we got it like a couple weeks ago, but only like a copy or two, and now we got a bunch. So this is like a no-brainer if you're like a big art person and you like, you know, sexy art, which this is. A little Frazetta book action for you. And that's it, man. Boy, I drowned on and on and on and on and on and on. All those books came out. I would definitely recommend Big Title and Gup. Those two, especially. But you let me know what you read this week. And if you read those two especially, please tell me what you thought of them. That's it for me. Remember to comment below, like, subscribe, etc. And that's it this week. I'll see you next week. Thanks for watching, and keep reading. Bye-bye.
Bum, bum, bum.